Okay, we're going to cover walking through the merchant processing application and completing the fees. This presentation will cover all the fees related to credit card processing except the discount rates. So we'll cover each one of those items, and then we'll cover the discount rates depending on which model you want in separate trainings. So first of all, begin by noticing that there's two sections on this that are not used: the wireless fees and the payment gateway fees. These are not used here because this is to communicate to First Data what we would be using through them for wireless or gateways, and we don't use them as we use our own gateways and wireless connections that we have internally. So you would utilize a different form for those services. Let's begin at the top with the MCC/SIC code. These are government codes that are given to merchants based on the industry that they come from. When you completed your application, it's important to carefully identify what products and services are sold by the merchant so that the person keying in the deal can properly identify which MCC or SIC code is needed for your merchant. In other words, if it's a restaurant, it gets categorized as a restaurant. If it's a retail store, it can identify those types of things. So just be clear on your application so that this code can be established by the person keying the deal. It's not something that you complete on the field when you're doing the sale. If you look at the next section, I've identified here, this is the other pricing areas we're going to cover. Let's begin with monthly sales processing limit. This is the total amount that the merchant is expected to process in credit card processing. You want this to be high enough that they don't exceed it, but not so high that it would cause it to be harder to get it approved by underwriting. The second section here is average ticket. This is simply the amount that is ran on average per transaction. It's not per person, but per transaction. This can be established by taking the existing processing volume and dividing it by the total number of tickets or total number of transactions, and that'll tell you the average ticket. Here in this example, we're saying the average ticket is $22.50. High ticket, like in the last year. One good way to establish this is to ask the merchant, what's the highest ticket you've had that you can remember in the last year? This helps establish a high ticket. Again, this is one of those things where you don't want it to be too low because then the ticket might be held, or you don't want it to be too high because then it would be hard for underwriting to approve it. So it's going to need to fit within those parameters. So fill out the high ticket here. And then moving to monthly minimum discount fee. This fee is the dollar amount that'll be ran in discounts. If the merchant were to process no volume, then a $25 fee would apply. However, if they were to process at least $25 in credit card processing volume, this fee would not apply. So this is here as just a minimum protection of margin on the account. Moving to the customer service/statement fee, this is where the monthly fee is collected. Generally $10 is one of those amounts that's generally charged. Now, if you're doing a flat rate billing, you want to keep in mind that this would probably be zero, as you're going to include this in their flat rate. Next section is the Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express transaction fee. This fee is based on the authorization. So each time the card is authorized, it's going to charge this transaction fee. Again, on the flat rate, you may have this as zero. But here, for example, of other processing models, you may have this as a quarter. But this is based on per auth. This is the important transaction fee. The next one is a sales transaction fee. Now this is based on the ticket. This is based on the settled ticket. Again, it's a way of charging an additional transaction fee. Generally, you'd want to have this as zero. The way I have it priced here, you'd actually be charging the merchant 50 cents per transaction. So in this case, generally speaking, sales transaction fee is recorded as zero and not needed. But however, you may want to charge in a couple different areas, perhaps maybe 10 and 10 or something like that. It just gives you the ability to have an additional place to charge for a transaction fee. The section here for EBT, and then WEX stands for Ride Express, and then we have Voyager. Let me talk first about EBT. EBT is a government food stamp program. It's essentially an electronic benefits. If the merchant already has one of these programs established, we can move it and reprogram it to our terminals. Be sure you check for terminals that will work with that program. It is important to note we don't set up new EBT for any merchant. They have to already set it up, and we cannot set it up. They need to go to the government for that. And then here, if you had that, you would charge a transaction fee. Now, Ride Express and Voyager, those are purchasing cards that are given out by large corporations, generally for pay at the pump. So when you're selling a a petroleum account, you may need to get this and charge a transaction fee, but otherwise this is generally zero as well. AVS stands for Address Verification Service. This is a fee charged when a credit card is hand keyed into the system. What it does is it verifies the address that's keyed into the terminal. So the credit card number is keyed in and then an address is asked for, a zip code. And then that zip code dials out to a separate system and confirms the address zip code matches. With that match, you actually get a lower interchange rate. So it keeps your rates lower, both for the merchant and for us. So it's an important service and should be set up on every retail account. The batch is simply each day when the merchant closes out all the tickets that are stored in the credit card machine, then it's going to charge a single batch. Generally, you have this match your transaction fee. If you're using flat rate, it's going to be zero, just as AVS would most likely be zero as well on a flat rate. Now let's go to the top right and we'll see that we're at the retrieval request. Retrieval request and chargebacks are tied together. Retrieval request is the letter that's first sent out in the event a chargeback is initiated by a cardholder, and essentially it's requesting information related to that transaction. Then when it moves to chargeback, then a chargeback is what happens in the event the card processor determines that the merchant did not fulfill their obligations or that the cardholder has a valid reason for the chargeback. So retrieval is generally priced at $10, and then chargebacks are generally priced at $15, and together that's a $25 transaction. Now sometimes it could be priced differently, so just check with your manager as to what you're supposed to price those at. This section here called FRP, it's just simply a acronym. It actually was set up to mean flat rate program, but it's really a monthly fee that can be set up unique to each office. Generally this is zero right now, but check with your manager and see if you're using it for any monthly fee billing that you may be doing, especially for flat rate merchants. This section here, reserve maintenance fee, that says $2.50 per month if applicable. This is generally never used. Only if your merchant was established in a high risk department and requires a reserve, they charge the merchant a $2.50 per month fee. This would not be found, generally speaking, in 99% of all the accounts, especially any retail account like that. So this is generally a non-issue. Regulatory fee is a fee that's related to a combination of fees that First Data charges various merchants. Generally, they charge merchants $2.95 a month or $3.95 a month. Here you would prices according to what your manager tells you need. Generally, on our programs, this is zero, especially on a flat rate program, this would be zero. These next two are PCI compliance related. PCI compliance is payment card industry, and it's called DSS, data security standards is what that stands for. So basically there's some compliance requirements that the merchant has to work with in order to take credit cards. The first one is a fee for their access to the portal. Want to complete their PCI compliance, we offer them a portal. And if you set that up per month, it's set up generally at $8.95 a month. Of course, you can price that differently. This fee, the PCI non-action fee, has to do with them not completing their PCI compliance, and then it's a fine that's assessed to them. This can also be priced at $18, or it's priced at zero on a flat rate. Ideally, check with your manager on this pricing as well. And that completes our review of all the pricing other than credit card percentages for the First Data merchant processing application.